Okay, we're back for another show. This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. I have over $12,000 off 2023 F-150 right now. Get at me at Norman Oak Ridge Ford on Instagram. I am your guy for Leafs content. I am your guy for your next vehicle. It is Sunday, March 17, 2024. Norm in London, Mike in Buffalo. Well, I was figuring the Leafs were going to beat the Hurricanes last night, and then the final 90 seconds of regulation happened. Sebastian Aho with a couple of goals, the Leafs men down because the Hurricanes were bringing everything, including the kitchen sink, at the Maple Leafs. Not only did they tie the game, they'd get through the overtime frame and then into the shootout. And Carolina would prevail 5-4 over the Leafs after Toronto had a 3-0 lead in this game. Yeah, they'd won a couple before this, third in the Atlantic right now. But Michael, geez, Mitch Marner not being there, his absence certainly felt, especially when it comes to the power play. The Leafs, at one time, the top power play in the NHL, now down to fourth and fifth, and it's dropping pretty quick. Add to that an abysmal penalty kill, and all isn't well in Leafs land. Good morning.
Good morning. This is the thing, and we'll start off with this.
Right.
In the recent history of this team, I would say their stick-to-itiveness has been called into question. Their ability to finish has been called into question, going back to Morgan Riley scoring in Game 6 against the Bruins, and it was 2018, or being up 4-1, or whatever. Until they shake that penchant, what people think of them,
right?
This team is never going to win. And last night, in spite of the fact that right now, and I critiqued this and I talked about this on my columns with Hockey Buzz this week, pretty much the remaining part of this season is meaningless.
Right.
They've got 14, 15 games left. They're 6 points ahead of Tampa Bay. They're well behind second place in the Atlantic. Unless there's a complete and utter collapse, they're finishing in third in the Atlantic, and they're going to play the loser of the Boston-Florida contest for first place.
Right.
So really, the only thing that they have to be concerned with is getting their own house in order, making sure everybody is playing at their best, and making sure that everybody is healthy when the first round starts in mid-April. Well, right now, and we'll go over this in more detail, they won some games in a row playing Ilya Samsonov, but what they should be doing is playing both goaltenders. Right. After Joseph Woll did not play particularly well against Boston, they've gone with Samsonov every game since. They should be playing both goaltenders. Their special teams are in chaos right now, and they have a couple key injuries. So I would think right now, thankfully, from their point of view, they have a month, because they're going to need every bit of that month to sort of get their own house in order in preparation for the playoffs.
This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. Like the content, subscribe to the channel. Mike, the Leafs had been on a pretty good run, appearing to be present when required, holding down leads, being assertive, and then last night happened. Do you think this is a one-off in terms of a new dynamic for the Maple Leafs, or is that inability to finish? Do you think it's still there in general? Like, so when there were that period where the Leafs just couldn't hold leads, and we were so frustrated, and it was happening, 2-3 times a week. Is that something that's still lying under the surface with this team? And despite a bit of a new dynamic and a change of fortunes over the last month and a bit, we have to be cautious that a lack of attention to the details can kind of reinstitute the inability to finish games. We saw it last night. Is this just a one-off, a potential aberration based on their recent play? Or is this something that we should be really concerned about? The team, of course, working on that right now.
Well, a more reactionary member of the fan base would continue to say that this team this team is a bunch of choke artists, because in if you look at since the All-Star break, I think they're well over 500. They had the 7-game winning streak, but then they won on the West Coast. But if you look at the two biggest games, the two games that would have made a difference, they were the two games against Boston, and they came up very light in both games. Right. Okay, so now you're locked into third.
But they didn't blow leads, and last night just harkened back to that time period where the Leafs were on thin ice when they had leads, couldn't hold it. So it's just a reminder that you can't take anything for granted. You got to keep working at it.
It's a general thought of being able to come up big. Okay. And coming up big is winning the games you need to win that are key. Right. And also winning when you're holding a 2-goal lead with 2 minutes left to go in the third period. We can say these games are practically meaningless for the Leafs, but when you're up 2 goals in the third period, you stick a fork in the opposition. So they're done.
Statistically, these games are meaningless, but spiritually, they're everything.
Yes, because what is everybody talking about this morning? Right. They're a bunch of choke artists,
right?
And it's tough. It's tough for the fan base to shake off 4-1 and all these other things. They've won one playoff round in 20 years. So until this team takes a long run, and until this team comes up big when it counts, and until this team puts away games that they should put away, that specter is hanging all over it.
Right. Michael Matthew, personnel on the ice at the end of the game, had me scratching my head. What the hell happened, Mike? 90 seconds to go. You're up by 2 goals. Carolina's coming at you. Extra man, power play. How the hell can you not hold it down for those 90 seconds?
Well, first of all, their penalty killing has been atrocious.
24th in the league.
Yeah, but it's just, we'll talk about injuries in a second, but the injuries have hit specifically to their PK, to their special teams. Mitch Marner is a driver on both of those units, and he's a playmaker who helps set up the shooters on the power play, and he's on the first PK, and he's out there usually for most of the entire 2 minutes. So now I'm just looking up who was on the ice in the third period when that last goal. It was Tavares, Nylander, Bobby McMahon, which I don't have a problem with because Bobby McMahon had a really good game. McCabe and Brody. I think you had obviously Tavares out there to win the face-off to gain possession. You had Nylander out there. Now, again,
is Nylander doing Marner's work right now? I mean, if you're going to make all that money and be the guy, then do his work.
But he's also been more on the penalty kill, more involved on the penalty kill. And I don't say that's the thing. I don't think he's a particularly good defensive player. I don't think he's a particularly good penalty killer. It's the fact that he's a good offensive player that makes him, makes other teams. That's why they're putting Matthews out. I mean, Matthews is a better two-way player. He's strong on his stick. He can overpower players. With Nylander, it's speed, but positionally sometimes he takes himself out, and it's not particularly good. Right. I don't know if it's he's making $11.5 million now. I mean, I don't think it's that. They're going to play the best players, but right now their PK is atrocious, and they're being forced to use players that they normally don't use in penalty killing situations, and that is hurting them.
There you go. OG's converts. What say you? Do you feel the Leafs are choke artists after what we saw last night? It's not like they've been blowing a ton of leads over the past month. They've been doing the contrary, putting games away. That said, not coming up big when they really need to. Batten down the hatches, get those 2 points last night, carry on. You play up against a team like Boston, who is just in your head and traditionally better, and you're punching up at, and you show up with, two anemic efforts. So, there's one half of us who think that, hey, you know what, it's just all part of the season and you're going to have your ups and downs. Let's move on. And then there's another group of people out there who think the sky is falling because of what happened last night, hearkening back to when the Leafs were unable to hold down leads, and reminiscent in a bad way of, all of the things that ail the Leafs and just how inept they are in crunch time. Mike, in terms of the injuries, you and I talking a little bit before we went live regarding Mitch Marner and, how he applies to what's happening right now. I'd like to see him get back, get into a good mindset, get rocking and rolling, and then have that big playoff that we've been wanting to see from him over the last couple of seasons. But you're thinking, hey, you know what? Forget about his points. He'll be able to integrate himself whenever he gets back in there. As long as he's back healthy, that's the key.
By the way, the 13-5-1 since the All-Star break. So, it's like people are going to say that anybody's criticizing them are, out to lunch. It's, again, 2 of the 5 losses.
Right. And we know that, Mike. Well, that's the thing. We know they've won a ton of games. I prefaced it.
Yeah.
We know that it's how things are taking shape. And last night, regardless of the record, just is not a good. It's not a good look. It reminds us of those old inept Leafs who can't put anything away, and that's not what we want to see right now. So anyway, go on, Marner.
So on Marner, obviously, you see the struggles on the power play. First, they used Bertuzzi when Marner was in the lineup, and now they've either moved Tavares back, and last night they used 2 defensemen on the power play. So, I mean, things are not working. I think they're like 1 for the last 20, something like that. It's not a good look. They seem sort of. I mean, Austin Matthews was like, "Give me the puck."
Right.
Like waving with his stick for a one-timer when he thought it was open. So there seems to be a level of frustration there. On the PK, I mean, like I said, Marner's out there for the first shift on the PK. Sometimes he stays out there for a minute and a half. Sometimes he stays out there for the whole 2 minutes. His ability to sort of hinder the point guy to not be able to get the point shot off, or to stay on him and force an error to go the other way. Those are key. And now you're having Pontus Holmberg and Bobby McMahon and a number of other, and Connor Dewar, who just was added in the trade from Minnesota. I mean, I'll just tell you right now, Mitch Marner is not the best player on this team, but when it comes to the playoffs, for special teams, he's the most valuable player on this team because he's playing in both units and he makes both units go. Right. And for people who don't want to hear that, I don't care. It's the reality. If they lost Marner for a lengthy period, or if he's debilitated in some way, that's going to severely limit. Now, one of the reasons I think he's been out for 3 games. These games are meaningless. So basically, what's going on here is make sure he gets to 100%. Make sure he's working, everything is fine, and don't force him back into the lineup, and then everything will be okay. But you can see where the absence of Mitch Marner really hurts them right now.
Yeah, for those who dislike Mitch because of who he is and how much he annoys you, this is life without Mitch Marner, right? And if you think this is a better way to go, fair enough. But the Leafs are going to have to find some guys who can do what he does. And at this point right now, they're looking within, and so far, I can't say it's been a job well done. Alex, Dewar should have been on the ice in the last minute and a half and not Nylander. Okay, thanks for chiming in, Alex. J.R. Gabriel, it's time for a coaching change. They have no structure. PK is an example. When it comes to protecting a lead, it's just not there. Now it's the players on the ice, but the coach is the one who puts those players on the ice. And again, he's having to scramble a little bit because, one of his most key players who does it all is not available. So you make those adjustments. Now, Mike, we're talking a little bit about Ilya Samsonov and the run he's had and how you'd like to see Joseph Wall get in there a little bit more and forget about favoritism or going on runs. We need to have one off spell the other so they're both available for the playoffs. That's a coaching decision. I see Keefe's name brought up every second post in the chat right now, and most of the comments are negative about Sheldon Keefe. Well, how do we implicate Sheldon Keefe with what happened last night, how those losses stung against Boston, and how you think he might be a good or bad puppet master for a team that really needs to be coached well down the stretch and into a really important playoff run?
My critique on Keefe is basically, I mean, we know that there's a shelf life for every coach.
Right.
Sheldon Keefe may be reaching his. Now, if they have success in the playoffs, then he's going to stay around. And if they don't, if they lose in the first round, then he is in jeopardy. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And you can say, well, he was given an extension. That doesn't really matter. If they think that they can go in a direction, or if after 5 years that the team has tuned him out, or they need a different message, then Sheldon Keefe may go. But right now, I mean, my only main critique of him right now, I mean, you can't. The structure of their penalty kill, I mean, that's not on him. There are other coaches. I mean, he's the overall responsible part, but that's not specifically on him. I think the one decision, like I said from the get-go, that that I'm critical of is, since Joseph Woll came back, he played against Arizona, then Samsonov played against the Rangers. He played against Boston, then Samsonov played against Buffalo, and then Woll played against Boston. Since then, Samsonov has played 3 games in a row.
Why do you think that is?
I think he was rewarding Samsonov for performing better against the Sabres and against Montreal, 2 non-playoff teams, whereas Woll, after being out for 3 months, played against your main competition, didn't play particularly well in the second game. But I mean, I understand.
You think that was his thought process? Like he's punishing Woll for not showing?
No. I think he's riding the hot hand, and I think that the problem here is that he shouldn't be riding the hot hand. He should be playing both of them. He should be getting both ready for the playoffs.
I'm with you 100% on that, Mike. And if we don't know for sure, that's what he's doing. But Woll needs more. I'm Team Samsonov. Everything he's gone through. Yevgeny Kuznetsov is going on about the media and Leaf fans hating on Ilya Samsonov. And yeah, some of it was pretty vitriolic and terrible. But that's par for the course. When you're playing in a big market with fans who are hungry for a championship and players who have never been able to provide that, at least in our generation. So I digress. But, I'm Team Samsonov. However, I love Joseph Woll, and I'm with you. I think he is the goalie of the future for this team if he can stay healthy. So he's healthy now. Play him.
Yeah,
one after the other. Just, platoon them one after the other. Do it. Like, as you said, there's really no reason to pedestalize one goaltender while dumping on another. That's just not good for their psyche right now. There's no reason to bench somebody. There's no reason to have someone out there all the time. Play them both. There are 16 games remaining in the season. You're probably going to need both of these cats in the playoffs too.
Yeah, and ironically, Samsonov took a shot off the nuts at the Morgan Stadium on Saturday, and that was a perfect that was a perfect opportunity to put Woll back in.
Right.
And they went with Samsonov. And I'm not saying Samsonov was responsible for the loss, but I'm just saying that they need to be working both these guys. And so now their next they have back-to-back games Tuesday, Wednesday on the road, Philadelphia and Washington. They'll probably play Samsonov against Philly because he played well against Philly earlier last week. But Woll's going to play one of those games. But I think from the remaining 14, 15 games this season, you rotate them. You play each one, and then if you've made a decision on who you're going to go in game 1 of the playoffs and the last few games, if you want to give them the work to have them getting just basically into the swing of things, fine. But right now, after being out for 3 months, Woll should be playing regularly and not sitting as Ilya Samsonov's backup.
Yeah, I mean, your point is granted, Mike. This team is kind of where it is in the standings. Getting its house in order is the important thing. And I brought this up too, Mike. But obviously, you're extremely well versed in your hockey knowledge and understanding of where the Leafs are right now. It's all about getting prepared for the second season. When the puck drops on the NHL playoffs, that's what really, really matters. I mean, I don't think the Leafs are going to go in the tank, and even if they went on a serious run, due to the fact there is such a distance between themselves and the Floridas and Boston, it's all it will really do is kind of get them in motion. And if that's the case, nobody is going to, disregard it or not welcome it. But sometimes, putting up points against shitty teams is more smoke and mirrors than real content and something to believe in. So getting Joseph Woll into more games, having Elias Samsonov head right when he's out there, win, lose, or draw. And then, of course, getting guys like Kalle Järnkrok and Mark Giordano and, of course, Mitch Marner central to it all, back and healthy, and everybody in the right frame of mind. That's got to be the modus operandi over the next 16 games. And, of course, there are going to be some milestones that we'd like to see eclipsed along the way. William Nylander to getting to the 100-point mark, and however many goals we think Austin Matthews is going to get with his little slump that he's trying to get out of. It all remains to be seen. Last couple of words to you, Mike. We're going to keep it short today.
Yeah, another concern, I think, has to be the fact that the Leafs do not have a distinct home ice advantage at Scotiabank Arena. You can't pawn this off on the quiet of the crowd.
Right. It's been that way forever, though, isn't it, Mike?
Right, but I think they've traditionally played fairly well at home. This year they're 18-12-3.
Right,
20 wins on the road. They play better on the road than they do at home, and that is death in the playoffs. You need now. Okay, they're not going to have home ice advantage. I mean, right now, if the season ended today, they're playing Florida. So I think Florida will be heavily favored. And I wrote this for Hockey Buzz during the week. Playing Florida and playing Boston is like death by hanging or death by a firing squad. I think they're going to lose both of them. But the challenges are different. And while Florida, I think, is the better team overall, defensively, goaltending, offense, physicality, all that. With Boston, it's psychological. Boston's a good team. They can beat Boston. Question is, will they? Question is, will they be psyched out? Will Boston allow them by opportunity to beat them? But they have a better chance of beating the Bruins than they do Florida. But it's going to come down to, if they play Boston or if they play Florida, them winning the 3 games that they play at Scotiabank Arena. And if they don't, then they're behind the 8 ball. So they better get on the ball quickly and be able to play a better brand of hockey when they should have the advantage of the last change at Scotiabank Arena.
How do you make your home the house of horrors for the opposition when you're the Maple Leafs? Again, the crowd will be loud in the playoffs, but they are not like a support player or a support system for this team that strikes fear in the heart of whomever enters Scotiabank Arena. How do the Leafs become better at home and make home ice a true advantage between now and game 82 and into the playoffs, Mike, when they haven't really been able to do that this season? And Scotiabank Arena has never been a place that the opposition fears coming into.
It's not about the crowd. In fact, that the fact that their record on the road is better is an indicator that they're thriving when they're being pelted with obscenities and whatever else in Boston or Florida. I think it's purely pressure. And as to go back to the narrative that we started with, this team continues to wilt under pressure,
right?
Whether it's 2013 or 2017, 2018, 2019, or whatever. They've lost deciding games to Columbus, Tampa, Boston. That's Montreal. That's wilting under pressure. Now, last year, they beat Tampa. They deserve all the credit in the world. But, I think this year it's an indicator of the fact that they still will under pressure. And can they overcome that? We'll see.
Yeah, that comes down to the players, Mike.
Yeah,
that really does come down to the players. No amount of coaching is going to get this team through. No amount of, ear bleeding, decibel inducing cheering and loud noise is going to propel this team forward. It's the players, and again, whether it's against a rival or a team they've never met before, the monkey is on this team's back. And the thing about us is we want them to finally shake the monkey from them and do something spectacular. But on the same by the same token, we're looking at this team and thinking it's not ready to do so. So what the hell should we expect, right? You can't want these things and believe in your heart that they can achieve them. We have to take it at face value and kind of go with it and just kind of see what happens. What are you writing about right now at hockeybuzz.com?
Well, tomorrow I'll be writing about Saturday's game and most of the stuff that we just discussed. But this is, again, the two road games, Tuesday, right. Wednesday, then Edmonton on Saturday against Connor McDavid. Again, if they play 500, they're going to end up in third place. So pretty much it's going to be looking forward to who they're playing and how they need to play to win. And that's mostly what we're going to be concentrating on the next month, along with an update on some of the prospects. I go draft by draft with some of the prospects and see how they're doing wherever they're playing.
Hey, you're the best in the business. We're glad to have you. OGs, converts, like the content, subscribe to the channel. We're nearly at 4,000 subs on our YouTube channel. Join in the fun if you haven't already. It means a lot that you want to commit to the content and this movement that we created, Mike and I, back in 2018. Mike and I were bandying about a good 10-year run for the Convo, but we won't get there unless we've got your support and you guys keep coming back week in and week out. So far, so great. So let's keep it going. And we're all in this thing together. If the Leafs are able to be triumphant and get to a place that we haven't seen them get to before, we'll be one big family that can celebrate together and as one. And if on the flip side the Leafs fail again, well, where you're going to come to take up your sorrows. That will be on this content. Mr. Augello, thanks so much. Let's see if we can get together for a midweek show. If not, we'll reconvene on the next Sunday Spectacular. For Mike, I'm Norm. This is the Leafs Convo. We're out.